9 days ago, on the Monday following the state GOP convention in Twin Falls, we had one of those GOP delegates here in our studio to talk about his proposed rule changes for Idahoans to be eligible to vote in the Republican primary. More restrictive rules, like you have to affiliate a year before the primary, not just a few months like it is now. Or if you left the Republican Party with a 3-year period before a primary, well, you couldn't vote. Or if you donated to more than one candidate of a different party 2 years before a primary, then you also couldn't register as a Republican. Well, none of that applies now, but Branden Durst, the guy who told us this and was talking to us about this, he believes there was a large shift in party affiliations before May's primary, which led to a lot of non-Republicans deciding who should represent the Republican Party and led to his losing his race for state superintendent. Well, after we aired that interview, we had several viewers text in to say they were one of those primary party crashers, and even one who says she was so embarrassed with her GOP affiliation, she wanted out after what happened at the state convention. A few of them agreed to sit down with us and explain why they are now registered Republicans and why one of them isn't any longer.
I want my grandson to go, I like all these people just because they're people.
Bob Gross has lived in Boise for 32 years.
It takes a lot.
He spent 25 of those years as an environmental engineer for Micron. Last week, he sent us a text message. And you said, I'm one of the unaffiliated voters that changed to Republican. It felt good. I'm staying put.
Right.
What felt good?
It was nice to have a vote actually count, or at least I perceived it as counting.
You didn't feel that way before?
Well, I couldn't even vote in the Republican primary after they closed the primaries, so I was relegated to the general election, which is great. I voted, but I already had an idea who was going to win in a predominantly Republican state.
What changed your mind this year?
The Republican Party is trying to get even further away from the center. I believe that most people are somewhere in the center, a little right of center, a little left of center, but most people want to be somewhere in the center. I think it's just the loudest speakers on both sides that get all the attention.
That's the way it's always been, it seems.
It is, and maybe I've matured to the point where it started making a difference to me, and I'm like, man, I've got a grandkid now. I don't want this to happen. How do I want to say this? The separation of church and state, and I'm just seeing the church have such a big influence on politics that, and I still go to church, I just don't want those two to blend.
Meanwhile, Mike, if you had to describe your political beliefs to somebody, how would you do that?
Probably fiscally conservative, socially liberal.
Didn't want us to use his last name or show his face. Because you worry about ramifications of this, right?
I do. I run a business here in Boise. It's hard to hire. And this subject is so sensitive that I could have employees that see it and leave because of it.
You wrote and said, I've been a lifelong Democrat, registered as an independent until this year. I am now a fully registered Republican, voted against McCrazy and for Little, and will be registered as a Republican forever.
That's correct.
Why is that?
It just really irks me that I have to have people tell me who to vote for and how I can vote. And I have voted Republican in the past.
Mm-hmm. Has that been hard for you?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm trying to vote for the best person for the job. You know, I did have a bit of an agenda on this one. I definitely did not want Janice, I don't know how to pronounce her name, McGeehan, in office. So I registered as a Republican so that I could vote for Little.
When you say you will be that way forever,
mm-hmm.
You have no problem being a registered Republican?
None whatsoever.
Based on where you live, or just based on your politics now?
Just based on the fact that I want to vote for whom I choose. I don't want someone else telling me how to vote. And that's really the crux of it. You know, the fact of the matter is that if I'm registered as a Republican, it doesn't change what's inside my head. It doesn't change who I'm going to vote for.
Leon Powell registered as a Republican back in 2012. When it first became required to vote in Idaho's GOP primary. Why did you choose to be Republican when you did?
It's more conservative. It's more business friendly, and without businesses, you aren't going to have an economy.
Mm-hmm. And you don't feel like that's kind of the focus right now?
No. There's too much anger. And there's too much hate. And how can you respect politicians when they talk like they've been talking?
So Leon went the other way and left the party. Today, this 76-year-old grandmother drove to Ada County Election Office and changed her registration from Republican to Independent. Feels good to not be associated with them anymore. Good, but still sad. Still feel that way?
Yes.
Why?
They're insane. They're saying things and doing things that aren't proven, that aren't true. And it's, if you say it loud enough and long enough, maybe people will believe it.
So what you're saying, and based on your decision to change your affiliation, you're not proud to carry that Republican designation anymore?
No, it's embarrassing. The thing that got me really started, of course, with a lot of people was the abortion issue. I was in my early 20s in Minneapolis before Roe versus Wade. And it wasn't talked about, but there were back rooms that performed abortions. There were babies that were born without limbs because of botched abortions. There were so many suicides. The fear that a young girl had, especially in the late 60s, if you got pregnant, ooh, bad, bad, bad. They didn't know what else to do. There wasn't anybody they could tell or trust. There was no place to go. There was no Planned Parenthood.
This sounds like it's a close thing for you.
Well, it is, because I had a friend that was affected, a very close friend, and it hurts. And to go back to that, because that will happen. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mike believes Democrats, or even those just right of center, are forced to speak in whispers these days, scared to speak out.
It's sad. Hopefully come this fall, we'll get some people in office that are a little more mainstream and not so far on the fringes. I'm not a real liker of the left fringes as well, or the right fringes. I'm more of a centrist.
Do you feel that part of the spectrum is being phased out or pushed down?
I definitely feel that the fringes on both sides are gaining a bigger and bigger voice, and they are very vocal. There's no doubt about it.
What do you think about this push by some Republicans, those on the far right, of making it even more restrictive to register and vote in a Republican primary?
I think it'd be a shame, because I think they would lose a lot of voices. But I know why they're doing it, because they don't want those voices. They want to keep a minority voice really kind of spearheading the charge.
Do you consider yourself a rhino? And if so, is that a good or a bad thing?
There's times that certain aspects I do feel like a rhino, like I'm just hiding behind, I'm a Republican. So I can see that, but at the same time, there's some values in the Republican Party that I agree with. I haven't seen much of them lately. I don't know when hate and bigotry became a value. That's one I really have a tough time with.
And so I guess your idea is to change it from the inside.
My little step, I suppose. I just want a voice in the Republican Party because I feel like they could represent me. And especially in Idaho, they do represent me. So why shouldn't I have a say in that?
Is there any part of you that says there's a chance?
Absolutely.
That you could go back?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but yes, it will get better. It may get worse before it gets better.
What would it look like to you to be better?
That there wouldn't be so much hate in any direction. When my kids were growing up, we had a couple of words that were stinkin' thinking. We called it stinkin' thinking. Hate was one and can't was the other. And that's stinkin' thinking. And that's what's going on around the country. And people are ho-humming.
Normalizing it.
Yes. Would I be sitting here talking to you if I didn't think it would get better?
Well, despite Leon leaving the party, the number of registered Republicans in Idaho has jumped lately. From January to April, with the deadline to change affiliation in time for the May primary falling on March 11th, Idaho saw 14,000 more Republicans join the ranks, but they weren't coming from the Democratic side of the ticket. April from July, though, there were more than 31,000 added to the rolls, and a lot of those coming from the unaffiliated faction.